Yo, what is good, Ram Team? I am RJ West, and I am back for my 2017 AL predictions, season predictions, and I'm going just by standings in this, and tomorrow I will get the NL predictions out. But for right now, we are talking American League, and we are talking about the stacked American League. So I'm going to have some more baseball videos once the season starts, and the depth charts used in this video were from rosterresource.com, so definitely go check out rosterresource.com because they're a good source of finding depth charts, getting injury updates, all that good stuff. But enough talking, let's get into these AL predictions. There isn't much to say about this team. They went from winning 83 games in 2015 to 59 in 2016, mainly because the pitching fell off big time last year. The pitching still isn't very good, with Ervin Santana considered as their ace, which is a big problem. I have nothing against Ervin Santana as a number 3 starter, but if he's your number 1, yeah, you have problems. Guys like Miguel Sano, Brian Dozier, and Joe Mauer should have good seasons again, but Brian Dozier leading off of them is another problem for me. Don't get me wrong, as a number 4, a number 5, or even a number 3 hitter, Brian Dozier would be awesome. However, as a leadoff hitter, I really don't see it. And so the Twins should also trade Glenn Perkins once he gets back from injury, since good vet bullpen pitchers don't serve any good on a rebuilding team compared to a contending team. And so you can see guys like Steven Gonzalez and Adalberto Mejia come up if the Twins trade guys like Phil Hughes, Kyle Gibson, Ervin Santana also to give those prospects big league experience. The future isn't all bad in Minnesota as long as they tank this season, and that is if they don't do drastically better than my 60 and 102 record prediction for them this season. The A's have pretty much fallen off a cliff after the new moves made at the 2014 trade deadline, which we will not be going over in this video because we're talking about the present. And in the present, the A's picked up some hitters that can give better production like Matt Joyce, Trevor Plouffe, Rajai Davis, and then also you can see top prospects like Franklin Barreto, Matt Chapman, Chad Pinder, and Bruce Maxwell come up this year depending on current starters' performances. You might even be able to see guys like Frankie Montas and Daniel Gossett come up for the Athletics this year as well. And so this Athletics team can surprise some people this year and win 80 games if the AL falters with injuries and disappointments. With that being said, the AL has to falter pretty bad in order for the A's to win 80 games or even 70 games. The AL West has 4 potential playoff teams in the Mariners, Rangers, Angels, and Astros, and then the AL West is just too stacked alone, let alone the AL itself. And so because of this, the Athletics currently lack prime talent that could put them in the mix, which includes Sonny Gray. How will Sonny Gray bounce back from his non-Cy Young candidate performance last year? And even that is an understatement. How will the young guys in the rotation fare? Will the prospects be able to contribute enough? There are just too many questions and not enough answers for me right now, which prevents me from putting them higher than 14. They can be better than 14, but even if they are 14 and only win 66 games, they can always be sellers again and move older guys at the deadline that can get them another prospect overhaul like it did last year. Fun fact, Chris Davis hit 42 home runs last year. It's rebuild time down in the South Side. Last year, the White Sox nearly won 80 games but still weren't going to be title contenders anytime soon. This current lineup lacks talent around Tim Anderson, Melky Cabrera, Jose Abreu, and Todd Frazier, who has an oblique strain, after trading away Adam Eaton. The rotation is not much better with Jose Quintana now being the ace of the White Sox, which just raises another red flag for me. I have nothing against Jose, he's a solid pitcher, but he ain't no Chris Sale. Outside of Quintana, they have Miguel Gonzalez and Carlos Rodon, but the back end of the rotation still should have its struggles to cause the White Sox to drop more games this year. With all this being said, you should be encouraged if you are a White Sox fan. The White Sox got the number 2 prospect in baseball, the number 16 prospect in baseball, and the now number 8 prospect in their farm system, along with another solid prospect from the Red Sox for Chris Sale. And then They also got the number 11 prospect in baseball, the number 46 prospect in baseball, and the now number 10 prospect in their farm system from the Nationals for Adam Eaton. Now I know that was a lot to take in, but as long as the Sox continue to make the right moves, they could end up being like the current Red Sox or the current Cubs. The prospects they acquired aren't even all of their best and upcoming prospects that they have. Should guys like Miguel Gonzalez, James Shields, and Derek Holland be traded, you could see Lucas Giolito, Ronaldo Lopez, and Carson Fulmer come up this year. You could also see guys like Yoan Moncada and Zach Birdie come up this year if spots open up. Although now looks bad, the future looks much better with the talent the Sox have. However, we are looking at the present, and I only see a 67-win ball club right now. I'm not buying what the Rays are currently selling. Evan Longoria, Brad Miller, and Corey Dickerson provide good power from 2 to 4 in the lineup, but that won't matter much if the rest of the lineup continues to struggle, considering the fact that the Rays lack contact in the lineup. Wilson Ramos was signed by the Rays this past offseason to help those problems after his career year Silver Slugger campaign, but Ramos is going to be coming off a torn ACL and meniscus once half the season is already over. Kevin Kiermaier is going to have to be more than just a defensive speed player because he has potential if he puts in the work, and then some guys could be replaced by season's end, but I still need to find out if someone not named Evan Longoria, Brad Miller, or Corey Dickerson will step up in the lineup. Their pitching staff is still pretty awesome with Chris Archer, Jake Odorizzi, Blake Snell, and hopefully Matt Andriese and Alex Cobb do well as well. However, much like the Athletics, the Rays have too many questions with not enough answers for me to put them further than 70 and 92 and 12th in the American League. If they are headed down the road of my record prediction, they are better off tanking in July and giving guys like Willie Adams, Daniel Robertson, Casey Gillespie, and others some big league experience. The Royals went 81 and 81 last season, where they had some injuries and the pitching wasn't too great either. They acquired Jorge Soler and Brandon Moss to provide some power towards the bottom of the lineup, even though Kauffman Stadium isn't really a stadium that welcomes power. Alcides Escobar returns as their leadoff hitter, which might start to be concerning. Mike Moustakas is coming off a torn ACL and is in a contract season after breaking out in 2015. Alex Gordon has been battling injuries the past 2 seasons, and last season he had a significant drop-off in production. And Raul Mondesi still isn't ready to be called up, which means Whit Merrifield is going to have to play like he did at the beginning of last season consistently, which is still a question mark. Eric Hosmer, Salvador Perez, and Lorenzo Cain should all be very good, but the Royals are going to need the pitching to step up. I'm probably less optimistic about their pitching staff compared to others, but I still see some question marks in their pitching staff since Yordano Ventura is no longer there. Rest in power. Ian Kennedy could be solid again, and Danny Duffy could be very good, but there are still questions about Jason Hamill, Travis Wood, Jason Vargas, and Mike Minor, who hasn't pitched in 2 years due to a shoulder surgery. And so, on paper this team could be a playoff team, but right now they have to show it before I can put them higher than 74 and 88 and 11th in the American League. There is talent, look out for them, but they just have to show it before I put them any higher on this list. The Orioles have been able to thrive upon power from an offensive standpoint behind Chris Davis, Adam Jones, Manny Machado, and JJ Hardy due to Oriole Park favoring power hitters. No need to talk about Machado and Davis, they are great. We are here to talk about the rest of the roster. There's really nothing bad about the rest of the roster except for the rotation. Chris Tillman should be back eventually after getting plasma injected into his shoulder, but outside of Kevin Gausman, there could be concerns about the pitching rotation. Wade Miley is being inserted into the rotation, where his career has seemed to go down since his Rookie of the Year candidate campaign in 2012 and was not very good last year. Ubaldo Jimenez had a very good second half last season, but the question still remains if he can do that for a whole season. Mike Wright was a good bullpen pitcher for the Orioles last season, but as a starter, not so much. Dylan Bundy may have potential as a starter, but has only been an average to below average starter up to this point in his career in the big leagues. Even Kevin Gausman hasn't even proven himself to be a consistent number 1 starter throughout the season. He could take that leap this year, but we haven't seen it yet. The bullpen and lineup are both strengths of this team, as well as the depth being improved. With that being said, a great bullpen is nice but doesn't mean much without at the very least a solid rotation. Because of this, I have the Orioles winning only 80 games due to the stacked and improved American League. They could be better than my prediction, but so far I won't project it. Last season, the Yankees won 84 games and improved this past offseason. Why do I have them at 9 in the American League? Simply because there are more experienced teams and better teams ahead of them. Don't worry, Yankee fans, your team will rise to power again and eventually. But with that being said, the current roster can easily get 80 plus wins and be better than the teams I just discussed. Mark Teixeira retiring and Brian McCann being traded were two of the best scenarios for the Yankees since they were two highly overpaid guys and it cut some payroll. Not that they need cut payroll since they are the Yankees and they can go out and spend more money on stars still. Just joking, Yankee fans, don't kill me in the comment section. And so, Teixeira is being replaced by Greg Bird, who will thrive as a lefty bat in Yankee Stadium and should provide good power coming off of a torn labrum and platooning with Chris Carter. And McCann is being replaced by Gary Sanchez, which is a much need considering the fact that the Braves' Brian McCann is no more and Gary Sanchez doesn't need to be stashed/delayed any longer. Matt Holliday was signed and should be at the very least a good power hitter. Aroldis Chapman was signed back to the club to form a very solid bullpen, and the rotation should be improved also as long as guys around Tanaka are solid and Luis Severino improves in a full season of play. However, they still have to grow, and outside of Tanaka, the rotation wasn't all that great last year, along with the American League having at least 8 more teams that could potentially be better than them, which is why I have them finishing 81 and 81. Last season, the Tigers won 86 games in where I have a hard time seeing them do that again, mainly because the pitching was pretty underwhelming outside of Verlander and Fulmer. Yes, Jordan Zimmermann was injured, but he wasn't very good before his injury and got paid as a number 1 starter this past season, even though we know he is not that, and got the number 2 as a number 1 starter effect by being paired with Steven Strasburg in Washington. Anibal Sanchez has fallen off at this point, and I don't expect him to be much better. The bullpen isn't really that good outside of Francisco Rodriguez, which means that blown leads are a big possibility and that the offense is going to need to do a lot once more. They lost a key piece last year in Cameron Maybin, and they replaced him with Tyler Collins, which will be a bit of a loss. However, I still expect the lineup to be very, very good once more. With all this being said, I only see the Tigers winning 82 games since I don't completely buy what the Tigers are trying to sell. They could end up winning more if they make some moves, but right now I only see 82 games. I know, the Blue Jays won 89 games last year and made the playoffs. My biggest problem with them is losing Edwin Encarnacion and replacing him with Kendrys Morales. That isn't even the whole problem here. The lineup has a bunch of question marks surrounding it. Josh Donaldson is great, but Troy Tulowitzki hasn't been all that good since joining the Blue Jays. Jose Bautista is now 36 years old and had his worst contact season since he was with the Pirates in 2008 and is batting third in the lineup currently. Michael Saunders has been replaced by a bench player in Ezequiel Cabrera, which is obviously a downgrade. The rotation didn't really get worse or better, and the bullpen still is pretty solid. However, I do expect the offense to drop off a bit due to regression mainly and a couple of downgrades, which is why I have them at 85 and 77 for this season. Let's not forget that Josh Donaldson was formerly an Oakland Athletic. The Angels were injured last season and were full of average to below average talent surrounding Trout, Escobar, Calhoun, Simmons, Cron, and Pujols. The rotation was even worse with regression to Jared Weaver, Houston Street, and Fernando Salas, and injuries to Garrett Richards and Nick Tropiano. However, this past offseason, the Angels made some very good under-the-radar moves that should help propel them to a potential fringe playoff team if one of the next 3 teams get significantly injured. They signed Ben Revere from the Nationals to upgrade left field. They signed Luis Valbuena to platoon with CJ Cron. They signed Cameron Maybin, who is an overqualified fourth outfielder, and they picked up Jesse Chavez, who at the very least should help provide depth. The Angels now have an improved lineup, improved depth, and a solid pitching staff. I think that they will take a big step forward and compete for a playoff spot to ultimately just miss and land an 87-75 record on the year. However, it wouldn't surprise me if they beat out this next team for that final wildcard spot. To be honest, the Texas Rangers seem to be a disappointment of some kind every year. Last year I thought that they could at least reach the ALCS, but they were bounced around in the ALDS. I don't think that they got better. In fact, they might have gotten slightly worse with others around them getting better, which is why I have them at 5 in the AL. Outside of a pretty good 1-2 punch of Cole Hamels and Yu Darvish, the rotation hasn't proven to be more than an average to below average without those two. Dylan G and AJ Griffin are not very good, and Martin Perez has yet to prove that he is more than just an average starting pitcher in the big leagues. Tyson Ross and Chichi Gonzalez will miss a significant amount of time, and Andrew Kashner will most likely miss some time as well. The lineup should be solid once more, but the pitching staff struggling a bit to start the season might falter their division title hopes, especially since the AL West might be the best division in baseball. Because of this, I have the Rangers winning 87 games this season. Improvements to teams around them will cause them to lose more games and barely make the playoffs. A lot of people expected the Astros to improve last season and possibly win the AL West. That did not happen, with last season being full of disappointment, underwhelming pitching, and a lineup that had some glaring holes. Dallas Keuchel took a step back from a Cy Young candidate to being an average starter again. Colin McHugh was inconsistent, the same can be said about Mike Fiers, and the holes that were in the lineup were huge holes. With all of this being said, I expect the rotation to bounce back and be better this season since we've seen it do well before. The bullpen should be pretty solid again this season, and the holes in the lineup were addressed in the offseason. Brian McCann and Evan Gattis will now be platooning, which should be an upgrade over Jason Castro at catcher. Yuli Gurriel should be an upgrade over Marwin Gonzalez at first base, and both Nori Aoki and Josh Reddick should both be huge upgrades over Colby Rasmus and Jake Marisnick in the outfield. The position player upgrades to go along with Altuve, Correa, and Springer should definitely take their lineup over the top, and so because of that, I think the Astros will bounce back this year and win 89 games to reach the playoffs once more. I know that the pitching wasn't very good last year, but we've seen them be great before, and the lineup is awesome in the power-oriented Minute Maid Park. Something has got to give in Seattle. They haven't made the playoffs since 2001 and have pretty much been in rebuild mode since and are still looking for success as a franchise. But who cares about all that, because Mariner fans, I think this is finally the year. They traded for Gene Segura, who should be a massive upgrade over Ketel Marte at short. They also received Mitch Haniger in that deal, who should get better as the season goes on, and have Dan Vogelball playing full-time at first base now. Mike Zunino will replace Chris Iannetta for full-time play, and Gerard Dyson should provide some awesome speed at the top of the lineup. I haven't even touched over the big-time hitters in Nelson Cruz, Robinson Cano, and Kyle Seager, or the pitching, in which they acquired Drew Smyly and Giovanni Gallardo to supplement the rotation. Neither were very good, but in Safeco Park they should bounce back. Lastly, they picked up some relief pitchers to fill out the pitching staff and help close out games. I see the Mariners being like the 2012 Giants, with a pitcher's ballpark like Safeco Park, a very good pitching staff, and a scrappy lineup that has speed at the top of it, which would translate into 92 wins. Look out for Seattle. They might win their first World Series this year and are, in my opinion, the best opponent in the AL to the Indians and to the Red Sox. We are watching a young baseball team grow up before our very eyes. Last season they battled injuries, yet still made it to the World Series. Now they get back Carlos Carrasco, Danny Salazar, and potentially Michael Brantley for another potential World Series run. And totally no big deal, but they just signed Edwin Encarnacion to replace Mike Napoli. As long as this team stays healthy this season, they might win more than my prediction of 96 wins. Lindor, Ramirez, and Naquin are all young guys that head this loaded Indians roster. And lastly, they picked up Boone Logan and Austin Jackson to provide depth in the pen and in the lineup. This team is loaded, and so look out once again because you can make a legit argument that this is a super team. However, they're not unbeatable. Much like the Indians, the Red Sox are a young team growing up before our own eyes. David Price is currently dealing with an injury, but once he gets back, it will be trouble for every team. They have Pedroia, Bogarts, Hanley, and this means absolutely nothing, but they have Mookie Betts, who just came off of a historical 23-year-old campaign. Not to mention, they still were loaded with assets that enabled them to trade for Chris Sale. So I have this team winning 99 games this year and grabbing the number 1 seed in the AL. I still do have them faltering against the Indians in the playoffs once more, but in the ALCS this time. However, we will discuss that when the time comes, which will be in October, and the Indians aren't their only opponent. The Mariners could also challenge them like I said earlier, so we'll see what happens. And so thank you guys for watching, and thank you for making it to the end. If you did, you're a real supporter if you do that. But let me know what you guys think about those predictions. Let me know why I'm wrong about my predictions. And this MLB season should be quite fun, so I would suggest subscribing because I'm going to have some more MLB videos coming out once the year actually starts, because I'll have these daily insights since I'm going to be watching more games, and I'm as hyped as ever for this season. The most hyped that I've been about a baseball season ever. This tops, I don't even know what season this tops, probably 2012 or something. I'm not sure, but this tops some season, and I can't wait. I'll have baseball coverage all season long, so make sure to subscribe for that. And also, I'm going to be doing a Miami Marlins franchise on MLB The Show 17 once the OSFM rosters come out, so make sure to check that out once it starts. And yeah, I'll see you then. I have been RJ West, your official voice of the A Miles Network, and I'm saying so long.